Kyle Coney is with us this morning to parse the weekend's big stories. We thought that maybe Galway beating Roscommon was going to be the biggest story of the weekend, but is it actually a bigger story that Stephen Cluxton has stepped away at the moment, Kyle?
Absolutely. I suppose going by Desi last night or yesterday after the game, we sort of were hoping for a bit more closure on the situation, but I suppose things really up in the air. Nobody seems to know what's happening. Stephen obviously doesn't know himself whether he wants to rejoin the fold or not. Maybe the hunger with him is maybe not there, or maybe just genuinely doesn't know. But at this stage, as you're saying there, the championship's only 8 weeks long. He's going to have to know within a very short space of time. I suppose with with Dublin out again in a couple of weeks, that question's going to arise again because the closure wasn't there. Desi come out and says, we don't know. And when you say you don't know, the question's going to arise again. And
when will you know? Yeah.
When will you know? When will we know? It's going to be the question on everyone's lips. Well, what's the story? Because, we know how important Stephen is to Dublin. You move and he'll find you. So he's vital till every single restart that obviously the Dublin have. He sets every score up. Realistically, he's the man who starts it all. And he's probably their most influential player and their most important player, and it'll be interesting to see what the story is. I know it puts an awful lot of pressure on Evan Comerford, so things are very much up in the air with Stephen.
We've been talking about this now really since last year's All-Ireland final about the quality of player who has left and retired, and obviously none of them were still first team nailed on starters with the exception of Cluxton, and Cluxton hasn't officially retired, but he's definitely stepped away, right? You can't take all of that brain power out of the culture and the training week in, week out and still be the same team, surely.
I would agree with that now. You say a lot of, you've Cian O'Sullivan left, retired, Stephen Cluxton, Paddy Andrews. So you take an awful lot of big names out. You take an awful lot of All-Ireland medals out, an awful lot of experience, an awful lot of miles in the legs, people who have been in situations where some of the players haven't been. I watched the highlights of the Dublin game last night. Although I agree with some people say Dublin are training for an All-Ireland semi-final. The stutter through that game yesterday. But I do believe that, this Dublin team's probably more beatable than they were a few years ago. I think that this is the chance now where other teams can close the gap. The Kerrys, the Mayos, Tyrone, even Donegal. Now is the chance where, they have players coming in, just probably not at the same calibre of the players that have been replacing them previously. And I do think that they're more catchable now than they have been. They're more open. 15-7 yesterday. People can say it's a league game or it's a championship game that they're stuttering their way through, but previously we would have seen them blow teams away and rack up big scores. Can't mind the last time I've seen Dublin not scoring a goal.
Is there a sense when you say they're more beatable now that there is a sort of now or never aspect to catching the dubs, whereby you'll have a goalkeeper who steps into the void left behind by Stephen Cluxton, and over a period of time he too might also build up the aura of Stephen Cluxton? This year it feels that there are a number of question marks around things like that aura and around the influence that some of those players have, that you kind of need to beat them this year if it's going to happen anytime soon.
I think I mind hearing something like that last year with the whole COVID situation where, last year was the year because they're not going to get the preparation, they're not going to get the time together. Because I was listening to Paddy Andrews a while back, and he was saying that they spent hours of conversation of listening to, talking off the pitch about where they're going to be. You can't hear each other in front of 82,000 people in Croke Park, so they're getting that sense of communication off the pitch where James McCarthy went forward, Cian O'Sullivan dropped in. But I would agree with that in terms of a sort of, they have a chance now. Teams have a chance now, I feel, as if they can close the gap. They have a chance with the likes of them boys out. The calibre of player, I just don't think, maybe they'll turn out to be that way, but at the minute I don't think they're the same level as they previously have been. Stephen Cluxton is massive till that, and I have always been ranting and raving about, I actually don't think Dublin have a real clear kick-out strategy. I think Stephen's plan is, you move and I'll find you. That's how good he is.
That's why I was saying this a little bit earlier on. I think you can't bring him back in later on in the championship easily. If he rejoins the panel, he's rejoining as a sub, because like, what does it say to the rest of the team that, okay, he gets grandfather straight back in, and you can't bring a goalkeeper on and off in a game, really. You're starting, you know, unless there's an injury, essentially, you're not subbing off a goalkeeper if he has 2 bad kickouts or concedes a goal.
Yeah, you're not going to bring him back in and start him, because I think that demoralises the team. I think that demoralises the whole point of the unit. What Dublin will be pushing is, this is a team. It's the same as everyone. You know, this is a team effort. You put in the effort. Everyone puts in the same amount of effort. You put in the extra hours. Here, that Stephen was doing 1 or 2 sessions with the goalkeeping coach, but he's back with his club. So I can't see him being brought back in. I can't see him come back in and starting. If things were a normal season, you know, you could probably give him 2 or 3 games in the Ulster Championship to see, you know, where he's at or when he was coming back. But with 8 weeks, it's a short space of time. And personally, I don't see him coming back. And I think it would demoralise the whole group if he came back and he was to be given a starting jersey.
So when you talk about the kick-out routine and you're thinking there that it's just you move and I'll find you, are other counties then thinking about kick-outs even more than Dublin, even though Dublin have it nailed down a little bit more?
Well, I go back to that kick-out in the All-Ireland final where Jack McCaffrey, that was a kick-out that's a kick-out routine. You can see it, and we've seen it numerous times, and we've seen numerous clips of the ball being broke, Jack McCaffrey starting his run just below the 45 and then ultimately end up finishing it in the net. But I think on a general basis, you know, Dublin have just, you move, we'll get to a certain area of the pitch, you move and I'll find you. I think other teams probably do put an awful lot of emphasis on kickouts. I know the Tyrone, we put a serious amount of emphasis on the kickout and what we would do after a certain score or what we would do after a certain play, what kickout we would go till. And I think teams sometimes overthink it. They do, and I don't think Dublin do. I think they just have that many. Dublin have that many players who want the ball. Other teams probably don't have that many players who want the ball. Their cornerbacks are easily as comfortable as their half forwards, and I think that's what makes them so good.
Could we maybe talk about some of the other games across the course of the weekend? You were at the Armagh Antrim game, and we'd Enda McGinley on at the start of the year, and he was wondering like what the evolution of the style of football that Antrim are going to, how they were going to play, and he said like there's a debate, you know, come championship time, should we go back to being a batten down the hatches team, or are we trying to get the players enthusiastic about being attacking and playing football? And like for a while yesterday, they were giving it to Armagh, and I don't think anybody expected them to give it to Armagh, but 4 goals between the 2 teams in the end, that's the difference between essentially a Division 1 team and now a Division 3 team.
Yeah, I was at the game yesterday and it was full credit to Antrim. They kept the ball for 3 minutes, 15 seconds for their first score that came of a free kick. They were the better side for about 40, 45 minutes. They were really, really patient with their build-up. They worked the wings really, really well. Mick McCann was sort of operating as a pivot man, sort of just in around the middle of the field. They were patient in their build-up. They worked the ball really well, and they were punching holes in Armagh. And any time they got through, it was either a free kick or it was a good score from the pocket. Nan Kiever kicked a brilliant score. Gordon Eastwood kicked a couple of great scores, but the conditioning level let them down. You know, in the second half, I was expecting a bigger kick out of them in the second half, the game really to come to life, but it never really materialised. I know Armagh got a penalty. It's probably killed the game off, and that left it too much for them to do. But just the conditioning level, probably between a Division 1 team and a Division 3 team now, that kicked into play, I would say, from about 40, 45 minutes on, and Armagh just looked the better side.
How much better are Armagh this year than they were last year when we thought that they were going to give Donegal a real rattle and then didn't?
Armagh, I was actually a bit disappointed in Armagh yesterday because I'd seen them a few times in the league and seen their last league game against Donegal, and I was really impressed with them. I thought they were moving the ball really, really well. I thought their forwards were operating on a different level that they have been. Yesterday they seemed sloppy, they seemed leggy. Maybe that was down to them sort of seeing the game as a full-gone conclusion and, you know, getting themselves lined up for Monaghan in a fortnight's time. But in the league, they were really, really impressive. I thought they were the kick of a ball away from getting into a league semi-final. Their game finished 1-16 apiece against Donegal. So I think if they get back to that level, I know Aidan Falker was suspended yesterday. He'll be a help to their team, and I think they need to get more cohesion at the back. I think, as I said before, they don't seem to have a settled defence. I would see the defence changing again with Aidan Falker coming back in the next day. So they've improved from last year, but they need to improve in big games. You know, the championship games is where it's going to count for Kieran McGeeney's men. I think that Kieran Donaghy bringing a new element to them. I know that they tried long high ball in yesterday, and it didn't work for the first 20 minutes. They put Charlie Ogue and Rian O'Neill in there, but they were launching the ball from 80 metres away, and it was impossible to catch it. You know, it was coming from an awful distance, and if they had caught it, Armagh or Antrim had plenty of people around the break. So they'll need to look at a different game plan for Monaghan.
Like, how quickly can that change of plan take place? Like, is that the type of thing that a couple of championship games in, everybody realises this is how it's supposed to work? In training this week, they identify you're doing that from too far out, have one more pass, work the ball up, make that transition be a little bit further down the pitch and then try it? Or, like, is that just the type of thing that, you know, they were massive favourites for that game, on a bit of a hiding to nothing, you safely navigate it, and then from that position of having won the match, you actually get to have the analysis afterwards?
Yeah, as you said, it's probably a no-win situation for them. Run up, although it did finish with a healthy scoreline between the two of them. You know, play really, really well, win by 15, 16 points. Everyone saying that was what was expected. But as you said, they're launching the ball from, you know, Rian O'Neill was in full forward along with Charlie Ogue. Oisín was kicking the ball from behind his half-back line, trying to launch it in. I think there's one more pass in them. I think it's get it to the middle of the field to run round Jamar Hall, Niall Grimley. And there was an awful lot of room in there for them two boys. I think if they had one bounce ball in front, they had acres and acres of room where they had the beating of the defenders. That's something that they'll have to look at, because Monaghan will sweep that up as well, you know. So they'll make the transition in training. I would suspect that they'll see that in the video work where they're trying to drive the ball from too long and work one more pass, get it inside. And they have brilliant forwards. Stephen Campbell didn't take off yesterday, who had been exceptional in the league, but he played a lovely ball in for Rory Grugan's goal, and he could have had another one, Rory. So they have the forwards to hurt teams. They'll make that transition in training this week, and I fully expect a different type of game against Monaghan.
Yeah, and the next round of Ulster Championship games are absolutely brilliant looking at the moment. Just on Galway versus Roscommon then, Kyle. Roscommon, I guess, have been a pretty entertaining team to watch over the last little while. They've got their hands on a Connacht Championship. They've done pretty well. I think Kevin McStay was on the show saying that they came close to maxing out what they had. Have they started to go the other way a little bit? Like, I know they brought Stephen Poulter in, maybe more of a stronger defensive system. Is that really the way Roscommon should be playing to suit their strengths?
For me, it's not. You know, there's been a lot of debate over the past number of years about defensive football and, you know, dropping numbers back. But people don't understand that there's a difference in every single play that you get or that you go up against, dropping everyone back. You know, if a team's having a slow build-up, then that's a time to filter numbers back and get your half-back line set up, get your midfielders set up, and not on every attack. And I was disappointed coming out and seeing Roscommon in the first half, every single attack just filtering 14, 15 men behind the ball, because that doesn't get you till that level anymore. That'll get you till a certain point in a game. Then you need to come out and win it. And it's very, very hard to flick the switch in the game to go from defence to attack. And yesterday they have good forwards, Conor Cox, the Murtas, Shane Killorn. They have really, really good players. And yes, they got to a certain stage where I think it was 1-3 to 6 points, and I was expecting them to kick on, just never materialised. And I was disappointed. And, you know, that probably has that Stephen Poulter effect on it, where, you know, gets as many men behind the ball as possible and break at speed. But there is Team Dublin do it. Dublin get 13, 14, 15 men behind the ball at certain stages, but they don't do it every play. You'll see that they'll leave Con and Kieran Kilkenny, those type of players, up the pitch on numerous occasions and hurt you, but that style of play is gone. And On every attack or in every attack or defence, that style of play is gone. I'm not a fan of it. I was expecting more from Roscommon. You know, a 5-point defeat, just limped out of the championship.
One last question for you about the word around Tyrone. When are we going to see all of Tyrone's best players on the field together? Is everybody fit? Is McShane fit?
As far as I'm aware, he's training. He's been training really well. I think they had a game, a bit of an in-house game a couple of weeks ago, and he was operating really well. I know we hadn't seen him in the championship or in the league, and that's probably where, you know, people look for signs of who's coming in and who's ready to play. We hadn't seen much of him, so I don't know about Darragh Canavan. I don't know if he's fit. I don't know if he's going to be able to make the first round if they're lucky to get over Cavan. But Tyrone's probably stuck in a bit of a crossroads where they've had a new management, and they're trying to put in a style of play together where they're trying to get more bodies up the pitch. But it's not going to, you know, it's not going to work overnight. I do believe that Cal McShane will see game time this weekend. I'm hoping that he comes in, you know, around 40 minutes, and it'll be a serious lift to Tyrone, because they're lacking that focal point in the full forward line. I don't think Conor McKenna's the man. I think McKenna would be a far better midfielder. I haven't seen him play there at all, and because, you know, when we look back to the AFL time, we've seen all the highlights reels, we've seen all the thing, and we've seen him breaking lines with the ball, punching holes, and to me, that's the perfect thing for Tyrone in the middle of the field. Set someone up beside him who can probably cover him defensively, punch holes. He's a great kick pass of the ball, get McShane back, and, you know, Tyrone will be in a better, healthier place.
Yeah, really looking forward to seeing that. Hopefully Darragh Canavan is fit for after, fingers crossed, from a Tyrone perspective, they get over Cavan. Kyle, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.
No problem.